Kansas City Sports Update Studios. Welcome to Kingdom Radio, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs. Brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Join Kris and Richard on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, CastBox, and all third-party applications. Check us out on Facebook platforms such as Kansas City Sports Update and Arrowhead Update. And if you cannot find us there, Google or search Kingdom Radio and Kansas City Chiefs, and you will find us. Welcome to the Kingdom.
How are we doing, Chiefs Kingdom? It is Tuesday, August 6th, and with me, as always, we have Kris Chavez, our senior NFL analyst, with us. How are we doing tonight, Kris?
Doing fantastic. Yourself, Richard?
I could not be better. I'm just happy to be on the show with you here. And fans, my name is Richard. I hardly ever introduce myself, but my name is Richard Smith, and we have Kris Chavez here, our senior NFL analyst. And I wanted to make sure that we got introduced tonight because sometimes I put myself on the back burner, but I want to let everybody know who we are so you can find us, look us up, and you know who's talking to you. So, with that being said, tonight we're going to start off with the injury report coming out of training camp. And, Kris, I'll kind of let you take off with that. What have you heard from training camp and the injury report? And are there any significant injuries that we should be aware of?
So, I'm going to start off with the new ones that just came out on Monday. Frank Clark was taken out of practice due to a sore wrist. While that's a big name and he's going to be playing a pivotal role for us, the injury is not considered to be very serious. So we got lucky with that one.
Yes.
And then the other one, or couple other ones, was Okafor. He was taken out of practice today due to a hip flexor. The Chiefs didn't come out and say that one's not serious. So still kind of waiting to see just how serious it is, I guess. See if he comes back in the near future, or if they just keep him out just to be on the safe side. Because, again, that's another big name that we're expecting to be a major contributor for us.
Yes, and from what I heard, it's not too serious. They haven't said anything about a length of time yet, but from what I've heard, it's not serious. So Alex Okafor, like I said, I don't look for that to be serious, but we will absolutely keep an eye on that. And so let's talk about Tyreek Hill a little bit. He was taken out of practice with a sore quad. What has resulted from that? Did Tyreek come back? I believe that he has, but Kris, I'd like to ask you about Tyreek Hill and what you think is going on with that scenario.
Yeah, Hill came back. He was at practice. I don't believe that he was in pads, but he was back, and I believe that they were saying that he's going to be seeing action tomorrow on Tuesday.
Perfect. And I also saw that Damian Williams and Jordan Lucas were both out with hamstring issues, and that's our running back and a very formidable safety for the Chiefs. What's going on with those two? Are those the other issues that will just go away in time?
Jordan Lucas, yes. The word the entire time has been that it's not expected to be something serious. In regards to Damian Wilson, I'm not concerned, but concern is growing. And I'm starting to hear some things kind of between the lines, reading what Andy Reid is saying as well. But I wouldn't say necessarily that we're going to be going to our second option at running back, and he'll end up taking over. I think that the Chiefs are just holding Damian Wilson out right now, just to be cautious and to keep him as healthy as possible, and to let that injury fully heal, and not to rush him back and aggravate it. Because he is going to be our all-around back.
Yes, and honestly, the guys that they were holding out right now, they're all smart moves with Wilson, Williams, Lucas, and then also Greg Dieter is having back spasms and was on the injury list as well. But I feel like it is an extremely smart move for Kansas City to go ahead and just kind of keep these players out and let them sit and heal 100%. like you said, Damian Williams, we really need this guy down the stretch. And I feel like Wilson can be a big-time contributor, too, in the linebacking core, and will be, and we need him as healthy as possible.
No, absolutely. Another guy that showed up on the injury report was Emmanuel Ogba. He's got an oblique strain, and that one, having had one of those injuries before, it does kind of concern me with as much movement as he's going to be expected to do on the defensive line.
Right.
That one could probably last a little while into the season if he doesn't heal correctly.
And, one thing that I do know is the Kansas City Chiefs have one of the best medical staffs in all of football. So if he is in good hands anywhere, it is with our medical staff here with the Chiefs. So we're going to move on here from the injury report. There are some concerning injuries, but overall, we're looking good here in Chiefs Kingdom as far as our depth and where we are with injuries. So I'm going to move into our next topic here, which can be a huge deal for Kansas City and all teams in the AFC West, depending on how this plays out. But Melvin Gordon, if he does not get paid by the Chargers, he is demanding a trade. And I don't see them getting that deal done, and that could shake things up quite a bit in the AFC West. And Kris, I want to let you go ahead and touch base on that because, you had brought up a good point, which I'm going to present to Chiefs Kingdom here, is, we need to focus in more on some of our AFC West opponents and what they bring to the table, because that's an extremely important, a component to everything that the Chiefs are trying to do this season. So tell us about Melvin Gordon and what is the impact that could potentially have on the Kansas City Chiefs.
So Melvin Gordon is for his career, under 4,000-yard rusher in 3 seasons. He's got a total of 28 touchdowns and is averaging 4 yards per carry, which in today's NFL, it's decent. I'd say above average. But the money that he's commanding or demanding from the Chargers is well out of the ballpark of what they're going to be willing to pay him.
Right.
On the flip side of that the Chargers invested a first-round pick in this young man. And I don't care who. They might have had a different GM at the time. I don't know. I'm not that familiar with the dealings of San Diego.
Right.
But you don't invest a first-round pick in a running back if you're not willing to, if they plan out, to pay them. Unless you're
the Raiders.
If you're going to be...
Sorry, I had to throw that in there. I said unless you're the Raiders.
Exactly. And, I mean, if you're going to have a changing of the guard every 3 or 4 years at running back, invest a third or fourth or even a fifth-round pick in a running back. If you invest a first or second-round pick in a running back, you need to be willing to invest money into that player if they develop into where Melvin Gordon is going.
Right. Now, here's my thing with Melvin Gordon, though, is like you said, he hasn't produced as much as you would like to see a premier running back like himself in that system produce. But at the same time, I don't feel like he's worth what he's asking, but I think he's close. And like you were saying, he's one of those guys that's kind of going to build up his career, and one of these days he's going to take off. And I just look for it to be on a different team than the Chargers.
No, absolutely. And I think that with him in the lineup, the Chargers truly are a playoff potential team.
Yes.
I mean, and a lot, I want to say every expert out there, but I'll say a lot of experts out there predicted the Chargers to beat the Chiefs and to win the division, potentially to go to the Super Bowl. And with Melvin Gordon choosing to hold out at this point, he could have done this earlier in the season. But
yes.
He chose to do it just a couple weeks before training camp.
Right.
he's messing up the entire dynamic of the Chargers team. And behind him, the Chargers don't really have a lot of deep talent at running back.
They don't, and I'm looking at the depth chart right now for them, and I mean their runner-up is Austin Eckler, and that's not somebody who can carry the load, for an NFL team throughout an entire season, especially a playoff-bound team.
Yeah, he's like a 10, 15 touch running back, and Gordon is big. If he continues to hold out into the season, depending on how long it goes, he could be absolutely destroying the Chargers' chances of making a playoff run.
Yes, and because, look, no matter if Melvin Gordon has a 100-yard rushing day or even a 60, 70-yard receiving day, he's still a big enough threat in the backfield to take a lot of pressure off of Phillip Rivers and that receiving core. So him really ultimately going in a different direction will absolutely tarnish any hopes of the Chargers making a run for the West.
Yeah, and the Chargers also need to look at this from a long-term franchise perspective.
Yes.
Rivers only has a few more years in him.
Right.
And Melvin Gordon is pretty much the only other offensive weapon that you have that's quote-unquote guaranteed on the roster right now.
Right.
And he's going to have to be the transitional player for that offense as they make the switch into their next quarterback.
Yes.
And I don't think that they have that quarterback on the roster right now, and so they're going to have a year or two of feeding Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon had an improvement last year. He definitely took another step.
I agree.
But I would have to see another year from him if I was the Chargers to invest the type of money that he's demanding.
And I agree. And here's another thing is, in my mind, if I am the Chargers GM or I'm anybody in the front office for the Chargers, I realize that this player, Melvin Gordon, absolutely makes Keenan Allen as amazing as he is, because this is the man who spreads the field for the Chargers. They don't have a Travis Kelce. Their utility player is Melvin Gordon to spread the field. You take that asset away from the Chargers, I just don't see this. This looks like the Chargers team of the old. The typical Chargers is what it looks like if you take Melvin Gordon out of the scenario.
Absolutely. And that's going to really open up the doors for, well, if the Chargers do end up trading him away, that's going to open up the doors for the Broncos to potentially slip in or at least next year, maybe the Raiders could slip into the playoffs and make a run for at the playoffs.
Right.
But right now that would seriously weaken the AFC West. Which, don't get me wrong, that's a great thing for the Chiefs, but the Chiefs also need for the AFC West to be competitive and truly challenge them, to make them ready for a playoff run and deep into the playoffs and make that push for the Super Bowl.
And you're absolutely right. And it takes every team in the AFC West to make the West what it is. And speaking of that, I want to touch base on the Broncos here for a second. We're going to get off base here, but I think this is important to say. Drew Lock looked like absolute trash for the Denver Broncos. There was not anything that Drew Lock did in that game that raised any eyebrows for me or anybody else across the league. So, I mean, and I had called this by saying Drew Lock wasn't the answer for Denver, but as long as John Elway's in Denver, I feel like that trend is going to continue with quarterbacks. He keeps backstepping. Flacco's not the answer, but we had talked in a previous episode about who was going to be the starting quarterback. I really look forward to be Flacco after that performance that Locke put out on the Hall of Fame game. It was horrendous.
Well, and to kind of piggyback off what you were just talking about, Locke is very much the type of guy who, kind of like Mahomes, needs to sit for a year and truly learn. And if I was the Broncos prior to this pick, when I'm going through free agency, I'm looking at my roster and saying, do I have a quarterback on my roster that I would want to potentially coach up and teach a young quarterback coming in? And honestly, with the guy that they had last year, I would say yes. You bring in a Flacco who, other than a few good years, has been absolute garbage his entire career.
He
has never been a preparer, has been able to break down defenses. He had a few good years, demanded $20 million a year, and then was completely average the rest of his career.
Yes.
And that's doing it gently.
Yes, I mean, and look what the Ravens moved on from. They moved on from Joe Flacco to an unproven, running quarterback that has been proven over the years that you can't win with a quarterback like that. And Lamar Jackson, but they still went in that direction. But that tells you just how desperate they were to find something outside of Joe Flacco. And then so Denver goes to pick him up. And I understand, what they're trying to do. It's almost kind of like the Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes ordeal. But look, Patrick Mahomes, number one, had a winning record as a starting starting quarterback in college football. I guess Drew Lock did too. What was his, 26 and 24, but it might have been 24 and 26. But my point is what I expect from Drew Lock is exactly what happened. Drew Lock's being put in a scenario where, okay, we realized last year with the Chiefs, Alex Smith was our guy all the way through the season. There's already question marks in Denver as to who is going to finish out the season there. To me, that's not a good situation for a quarterback like Drew Lock, who has potential but needs so much development before he can reach that potential. Unlike Mahomes, I don't think this is the right scenario for Drew Lock and the right time frame for the Broncos to make this all work.
Yeah, and I think that we'll see in about 3 or 4 years, the Broncos are going to have to make a choice whether to move on from Locke or to somehow move in another direction with the head coach, offensive coordinator, and see if they can squeeze any sort of talent out of Locke. Otherwise, they just set their team back another 4 or 5 years.
Hey, and to be perfectly honest with you, Chris, you are literally describing the Denver Broncos for the last decade.
Pretty much. Well, other than when they had Manning.
Right, and that was kind of the only bright light there. But that seems to be the trend here in Denver. And to be honest with you, I'd like to see them do better. But hey, let's win a 4th AFC championship in a row, and let's continue that record. So with that being said, I really look for the Melvin Gordon and then Drew Lock, Joe Flacco ordeal to be the most important and pivotal points as far as the AFC West and how good, the division will ultimately be at the end of the season. I think those 3 players, will solidify the AFC West, because the Chiefs, we already know what the Chiefs are going to be. But there's question marks all the way through the West, and we need to touch base a little bit on that tonight. But, with that being said, let's do some West predictions. Do you think the Chiefs will win the West?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that we go undefeated like we have in years past.
Yep.
I think we'll have a slip up here or there. Mm-hmm. The potential's always there, but I definitely think that we win the division.
Oh, yeah, and I do as well. And like I said, or like you said, the potential of a slip-up is there, and I think we will lose one in the West, and I think it will be to the Chargers, which me and you had kind of agreed on that before. And, we'll move into the season preview later in this episode. But we're going to move on here because we got a little bit off track. we're going to move on to the defensive line breakdown. And this is the training camp edition, and there's a lot of excitement with the defensive line. Obviously, the defense as a whole has made some formidable changes. But let's look at things here as far as the Kansas City Chiefs defense and our defensive line, because we have an identity now, and that's something that the Chiefs haven't had for years now. And also what we haven't had is a well-organized defense. So with that identity and the players that we've brought in, we have Okafor, Chris Jones, Derek Nottie, and Frank Clark, and then the depth with that as well, and the players that we're moving over to the defensive line as well, which we'll touch base on the new draft or the new depth chart the Chiefs put out, which is extremely interesting. But we have a great defensive line and a lot of depth. And Kris, go ahead and go into in depth about our defensive line and kind of tell us a little bit about what we're working with here in training camp, because it's getting exciting. We've got we have a lot of extremely amazing talent here in our D line, and for me, besides, the safety scenario, this is the most exciting thing for me coming out this season for the Chiefs.
So the starting lineup, going left to right, is going to be Okafor, Chris Jones, Nottie, and then Frank Clark.
Right.
And I'm really intrigued to see how this lineup works. In my dream scenario, I would like to see Jones next to Clark, but having Jones next to Okafor, I think is going to truly destroy offensive lines, because Okafor on his own is a force.
Yes.
Frank Clark by himself is a force.
Yes.
And then you throw Jones in there as well. He's basically a pass rush, and I know that he's great against the run, but he's like a pass-rushing defensive end coming up the middle.
Yes. So let's look at this scenario real quick, okay? All the players you just touched base on, Okafor and then Jones playing next to Okafor, and then Frank Clark playing on the right side. I'm telling you, look for Nottie to have a breakout year this year.
No, absolutely. He's going to be having a lot of one-on-one scenarios.
Yes.
And what I expect of a guy of his caliber is to absolutely destroy offensive line. I'll say about 75% of the offensive linemen that he sees this season.
I would love to see K-Pass get in there and him and Nottie rotate out a little bit. I think that'd be a great scenario too, because K-Pass is really good against the run, and I feel like with that front three, Okafor, Jones, and Clark, I feel like you rotate Nottie and K-Pass in, that's going to be an amazing rotation. Because look, the way they have them lined up is K-Pass behind Clark, but you already know as well as I do, all of that will shift at any given moment.
Yeah, you're touching on K-Pass, and he is my guy. He has been since we drafted him, and I've been really high on him.
Yep.
And I've been really patient, and it looks like everything that I'm hearing out of the training camp, it sounds like this is going to be his year.
Oh, yeah.
He's turning heads. He's knocking balls down, batting balls, affecting throws. He's getting at the quarterback. He's finally developing into the player everyone always expected him to become.
Yes. So let's talk about, okay, we're going to talk about your guy. Let's talk about my guy who's moved from linebacker to defensive end, and he's second stream just like K-Pass is, and I'm really waiting to see something from him. I'm talking about Braylon Speaks. You know how high I was on him and Dorian O'Daniel this past season. So let's talk about Speaks being moved to the defensive end position. He's almost, he reminds me a lot of, a Frank Clark-esque type of player with the size, and also I'll give him, who did we cut this past season? Who was our linebacker that plays for the 49ers?
The one that we traded?
Yes.
Or the one that we cut?
Traded.
D Ford.
D Ford. He reminds me of a D Ford type, but I feel like that Braylon Speaks is going to flourish in the defensive end scenario because he seems like one of those guys that can be fast off the football if he's down, in a 3-point stance instead of in the linebacker position. But kind of what do you think about Braylon Speaks? Is this a make or break year for him? Because they have him above Ogba. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Kind of to look back at another show that we had where the switch to the 4-3 he had always been in Veach's mind. Braylon Speaks is a natural 4-3 defensive end.
Right.
He played that position in college, and just due to his physique and his physical abilities, a 3-4 outside linebacker wasn't his real position.
Right.
And making this move, putting him back at defensive end, I think is going to really help him take the next step, because he's going to be much more comfortable in that position, and he can just put his hand in the ground and get after the quarterback and the running back in the backfield.
Right.
That's what we drafted him to do, is to be a force in the backfield, because that's what he was doing in college.
Yes, absolutely. We want those Knuckles White on the line instead of him, playing the linebacking position. And when I say Knuckles White, this is what I mean. When you're on the defensive or offensive line and your knuckles are white, that means you are leaning into the snap count. If you are sitting back on your butt, your knuckles will not be white because the blood isn't rushing to your knuckles. We want a white-knuckled defensive line. We want guys who are getting after the quarterback, play after play after play. And here's the best thing, and I want to throw this out there because I know you've seen this as we're going on with this, and it took me a while to see this as well. Our depth on the defensive line is amazing, because you look at our left defensive end, we have Okafor, Speaks, and Ogba. You look at our left defensive tackle, we have Chris Jones, Xavier Williams, Colin Saunders. You look at our right defensive tackle, Derek Nottie, Justin Hamilton, Joey Ivey. I would say defensive tackle is probably our weakest position. And then our defensive end, Clark, K-Pass, and then Rob McCray. I mean, we have an amazingly deep defensive line core here that is just as special as we had in the 90s.
No, absolutely. They have the potential to be better than the 90s version of the Chiefs defense.
I feel like you're right there. And look, and as being a biased Chiefs fan, and being the 90s is what made me fall in love with the Kansas City Chiefs. And Derek Thomas was a huge part of that, and Neil Smith, James Hasty, Dale Carter, all those guys. I'm not taking anything away from that defense, but this defense could potentially be better than that defense ever dreamed of being, and we should be extremely excited about that in Kansas City, and not really kind of, look, a lot of us want to say that 90s defense was the best ever, but here's the thing. It's only the best until somebody breaks that record. Okay, so we have a lot of talent here, and Kris, I'm with you, and I hope Chiefs Kingdom is riding with us on this one, because we have an amazing defense, and this is a night and day change from one year to the next. And I mean, I don't think that in Chiefs Kingdom we could have a bigger turnaround on defense from year to year that we just had this off season.
No, absolutely, and just to kind of go off of the defensive line as well. Well, their play and their depth is going to really help our secondary play better.
Yes. And
in this Spags scheme, especially with the depth that he has, he's going to be able to squeeze out every ounce of talent out of these guys, and we're going to look like we are 8 deep, a very strong 8 deep on the defensive line. Yes. We're going to be rotating guys out, keeping them fresh, and it's going to look as if we're getting after the quarterback every single time. And I mean, you're going to switch out Okafor for Speed, and that or the right tackle is going to be looking at the guy across from him. The tackle is going to be gassed, and he's looking at a fresh guy coming in, and he's going to have to try to stop him, there's no way in heck.
No, not at all. And I'm telling you, our defensive front is probably as good as it has ever been in the history of the Kansas City Chiefs. And you know, when I look at the talent that we had on our 90s defense, there were probably, 2 or 3 great players that really picked up the slack. And I feel like that we have like 5 or 6 of that type of caliber player on our defense at this very moment. And that's almost unheard of in the NFL. And I think that we're going to have a record-breaking team, regardless of what side of the ball. We're going to break a lot of records this season.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned this in our last episode about we have I think it was 6 players in the top 100 in the NFL.
Yes.
I think that next year we have 6 players in the top 100 on this defense.
I couldn't agree more with you. I think that we could legitimately have 10 to 12 players in the top 100 and probably 5 in the top 25.
No, absolutely. That's a very, very attainable number for us.
Absolutely. We already have 3. And so here's the thing. This is what I've learned about our defensive front. There are no holes in our defensive front. Every weakness that we had coming from last season into this season on the defense, we have absolutely taken care of every problem and filled the void and then some and added depth. We have geniuses in the front office, and we really could not be happier. And so the identity of the Chiefs defense, I promise you, Kansas City, just wait. You just hold on to your hats, because this is going to be something that's more exciting than we've seen in 20 years here in Kansas City.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I cannot wait for the regular season to start.
It's going to be an amazing year. It absolutely is. Okay, so with that being said, we have broken down the defensive line and why we think, it's going to be better than it has in 20 years. And so with that, we're going to move on to our next segment. And the Kansas City Chiefs released their unofficial depth chart, and there's some kind of surprise moves on here. I really didn't see some things playing out the way that they did. And Chris and I are going to touch base on that this evening. And I'm going to start off on the defensive side of the ball, and then we'll take off here. But my biggest surprise, and I don't know if this is just the way the Chiefs handle their business, if this is something set in stone, but I'm surprised by Daniel Sorensen starting over Juan Thornhill. What do you think about that, Kris? Do you think that's something that's legitimately set in stone, or are we giving Daniel Sorensen a little bit more respect than he obviously deserves?
I think that he's being given the opportunity that a veteran should be given.
Better wording. I'll give you that. Yes, we'll go with that.
And I think that. Well, I think that Reed is not going to just give a position to a rookie. He's going to, and I think that this is a little bit more of like psychology, as he's trying to make him earn it.
And I agree. And you know what? I agree with you on that one, because Juan Thornhill seems like one of those guys that put my back against the wall, and I'll show you, how good or how amazing that I can be. But also, you're right. Daniel Sorensen has earned that spot. But this is the NFL. Daniel Sorensen is getting a little older. Juan Thornhill is showing some exciting things in training camp, which I think will transfer over to the real NFL field, which we haven't seen yet. But I think that's what it's going to take, is for Coach Reed or Spags to see Juan Thornhill in action in a real NFL game to put him above Daniel Sorensen.
Yeah, and I expect in like about week 3, week 4 of the preseason to see Thornhill potentially make that move up to the starting position. Mm-hmm. He's been playing lights out back there granted it's with the second and third team defenses, but he's been playing phenomenal. And if he can do that in week 1, week 2 of preseason games, I expect him to see him make that jump up.
Yes, and that's one of those things that it just takes time, and we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out. Now, I do agree with most of the rest of our depth chart, which is unofficial, but I mean the offensive line is intact. Obviously, Tyreek, Sammy, Patrick, and Kelsey. Now, Damian Williams, we really need to get him healthy again. Carlos Hyde is the second in line behind Damian Williams. Obviously, Anthony Sherman is still intact there. Okafor, Jones, Noddy, Clark, and then our linebackers Hitchens, Ragland, and Wilson. I'm a little surprised by the linebackers because let's keep it honest. Besides Damian Wilson, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed in our linebacking core. Nothing.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me as well. I kind of expected Darren Lee to be in there.
Yep.
I actually expected Hitchens to be the strong side linebacker and for Darren Lee to be the weak side linebacker.
Which we'll touch base on here in just a few.
Yeah, with Darren Lee's speed, I thought that he would be much better at the starting position. But, I mean, starters, top to bottom for the most part, there's really no major surprises there. Pretty much just the Damian Wilson's the only one where it's like, okay. But everything else, okay, it makes sense to me.
Yes, and look, and I look for the biggest thing and the best thing about this Chiefs defense is we have depth. So no matter what the starting rotation is to start the game, at some point in the game, we have the depth to bring players in that will be just as productive as our starters. And that's going to move me into our next segment, which is segment 3. We're going to talk about Anthony Hitchens' role in the new defense. Look, Anthony is a soft-spoken leader of the linebacking core, and a lot of people have overlooked Hitchens because we brought him on last season. We took him from a system that was a lot like Spags, not as diverse, and it's not as in depth, but it's the same scheme. And then we put him in a Bob Sutton scheme, which didn't really hold his role very well. But here's the deal with a player like Anthony Hitchens. He is the leader of our linebacking core. Whether anybody knows it or not, he's a soft-spoken leader. He gets everyone set up in the right place before every single play. This is the guy that we needed. This is the Eric Berry-esque player that was replaced. And even though that we have the Honey Badger back there also as a leader, look, the Anthony Hitchens, we need him. We need those type of players in our linebacking core because, look, Justin Houston is gone. Derek Johnson obviously is gone. Dee Ford is gone. And, look, even Andy Reid is very high on Anthony Hitchens. And this is a quote from Andy Reid. He said, Hitchens brings a great energy every play, every day. And he's smart. So he leads the middle of that defense. And so we don't need to overlook Anthony Hitchens like we have. If you look at the highlights of Anthony Hitchens throughout his career with the Dallas Cowboys, he was a tackling machine, and a lot of people have overlooked this as well in Chiefs Kingdom. Hitchens had 135 combined tackles for the Chiefs last year, which led the team. That's 135 tackles. So, Kris, tell me about Anthony Hitchens. I kind of broke down, a lot about him and what his role is on the Chiefs as a tackling machine. He's obviously not a sack master, but with where he's playing here, with weak side linebacker, what do you look for this season? Is he going to have another 135 tackles? What's going on with Anthony Hitchens, and why is he being so far overlooked by Chiefs Kingdom?
So, Hitchens was kind of like a Swiss Army knife, so to speak, at linebacker for the Cowboys. He played outside, he played inside. And as you said, he was a Bob Sutton guinea pig, so to speak, and didn't quite work, quote unquote, work in that system, but still managed to get 135 combined tackles.
Right.
And in this current system, we've got him lining up at the weak side linebacker. What I expect for him, or the purpose is, because on the weak side, he's going to have less people in front of him. That's going to free him up.
Very
and
true.
It's going to give him the ability to run down the running back, see the quarterback better, read his eyes, and potentially step in front of a couple passes to a tight end or a slot receiver coming across the middle.
I think I'm with you on that one. I feel like Hitchens is going to have a better coverage year this season, but it's also going to translate into the running game as well. But continue. I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to agree with you that I think that he's going to have a really great year and coverage.
Yeah, and with him having less people in front of him for him having to worry about their blocking, he's going to get more tackles.
I agree.
Well, he should. The only caveat to that is, with how good our defense is going to be, I think everybody's going to be getting tackled.
And you're right. And also, as teams have built up film on Anthony Hitchens, via Kansas City Chiefs, I feel like that teams are going to try to hone in on him a little bit. 135 tackles, that's a lot. That is a lot of tackles for a linebacker in the NFL. We're talking a lot.
Uh-huh. Yeah, very, very few linebackers have that many tackles anymore. The majority of the ones who have about 120 plus, most of those guys end up getting Pro Bowl or AP nods.
Exactly, and I feel like that Hitchens didn't get the credit he deserved because he didn't get into the backfield as much as he would have liked. But at the same time, he's a team player. I don't even know if you look at his career stats, he really only has like 3 or 4 sacks in his 5-year career. So I think that as a whole, he's more of a run stopper and a pass defender, and that's something. Look, we need that in our defense. We need somebody who can fall back into coverage, and that's something that Veach has honed in on. And you touched base on this a few episodes ago. Is Veach goes through a checklist of things that he wants as far as traits in an individual player, and if there's not 3 check marks on that list, run stop, pass defense, huge motor, you're not going to get on our depth chart in any way, shape, or form.
No, absolutely. And the other great thing about having Darren Lee behind Hitchens on the depth chart is that Darren Lee is going to be a faster version of Hitchens.
Yes.
As far as being able to play that coverage role.
Yes.
But I think that Darren Lee, he falls to the wayside behind Hitchens due to the fact that, and we were just talking about this, that Hitchens is that leader of the linebacking group.
Absolutely.
And another point I want to kind of go back to in our depth chart is that if you look at every position group, wide receivers, offensive line, quarterback, running back, D-line, linebacker, safe or secondary, every single one of those groups has a captain, has a leader for that group, an experienced guy who is taking control and saying, we are going to do this. I'm going to be in charge. I'm going to be the guy. We're going to do this.
That's the greatest point that anyone, or period, could make about this defense. And I got to put an exclamation point on that. That is a very, very valid point, and I'm with you on that one. And Chiefs Kingdom, hone into that, because Kris is right here. I mean, we really, if you could understand just the depth that the Chiefs have and where we're at, this is some exciting times on the Chiefs defense, and we really couldn't ask for a better scenario.
No, and I can't remember a time that I've been this excited. There have been years in the past where I was excited. I thought we had a real shot. But this year, this team, top to bottom, all the way down to the water boy, to the towel boy, it's like we have true Pro Bowlers at every single step of this team.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
I would not be surprised if our towel boy made the Pro Bowl.
And you're right. Look, we could literally have an all-decade team. Just the Kansas City Chiefs. Just the Chiefs. The 2019 Chiefs could be an all-decade team by themselves. That's how much talent we have on this roster. It's ridiculous, Kansas City. We have a lot to look forward to here in Chiefs Kingdom, and I don't think anybody even understands just how amazing this transformation has been and the direction that we're going in. This is a whole other level of Kansas City Chiefs. We've never seen this before. This is a type... Look, this is, in my mind, a level of success that Kansas City has never seen before, ever. Could you agree with that, Kris?
Absolutely. We've had great offenses and poor defenses.
Yes.
We've had teams where we had great defenses and maybe mediocre, might be putting it lightly, mediocre offenses.
Right.
We've never had a team that had a great offense and a great defense all at the same time.
Right. And be perfectly honest with you, Chiefs Kingdom, I don't think I've seen an NFL team in my lifetime stacked the way the Kansas City Chiefs are. Now, there were a few teams that were stacked like that. And I'm going to mention the Washington Redskins and the Philadelphia Eagles and a few teams like that who couldn't put all these amazing pieces together. And we've seen it time and time again. But, look, that was because those teams put a bunch of players together that had their own identity. We have brought players into our system, a system that already had team players. And we brought team players in and players that understand that to be a Super Bowl champion, it's bigger than you. It's bigger than your personal stats. It's bigger than the team itself. This is Kansas City. This is a network that is one of the best, most thriving industries in the country as far as a sports team is concerned. And I think it's important for all of Kansas City to understand just what we have brewing here in our depth chart, because this is astronomical. This is something that can go down in history forever.
No, absolutely. This is definitely going to be a very historic year. And I think from the very, very first whistle for the first kickoff until the very last one when we're hoisting up that trophy at the very end,
yes,
it's going to be a very special year.
I feel like we're going to bring the Lamar Hunt Trophy to Kansas City for the first time. And I also feel that we're going to bring the Lombardi Trophy back to Kansas City. We're going to expand this trophy case. And look, the next expansion that we're going to have on Arrowhead-Stadium is that trophy case, because for years to come, we're going to bring that Lombardi Trophy home and the Lamar Hunt Trophy home back to back to back to back to back to back. Because we have a superstar player in Patrick Mahomes and all of the elements to contribute to a superstar player, as well as a special teams who is formidably the best in the league the last 5 to 7 years. Dave Tobe has that under lock, and I really, really appreciate the depth and detail that the Chiefs have put into the special teams and every aspect of our organization, is because it is highly paying off in our favor. And Chiefs Kingdom, I know all of you are feeling it. Kris, I know you're feeling it. This is a special time in Kansas City.
No, absolutely. And if you're not feeling excited for this season, you need to crawl out from whatever rock you're under, because this is going to be tremendous.
And you're absolutely right. And hey, with that being said, as tremendous as this season is going to be, we're going to move on to this next segment, which is by my favorite segment by far of Kris and I's broadcast. So we're going to move on here.
This is the No Look Pass, brought to you by Sean and Keogh Music Solutions, providing everything from simple background audio to complex creative audio pieces. Bring your project to life with Sean and Keogh Music Solutions.
All right, this is the No Look Pass brought to you by Sean and Keogh Music Solutions. Look Sean and Keogh up. He's on SoundCloud, Facebook. Get in tune with him. He does our introduction. He did that advertisement that you just heard. A great friend of mine. I've known him for years. He does quality audio work. Get in touch with Sean and Keogh Music Solutions. And with that being said, like I said, this is the No Look Pass. And I'm going to fire off with our No Look Pass tonight to you, Kris. And look, Chiefs Kingdom, if you don't know what the No Look Pass is, Kris and I, we ask each other a question, whether it be hypothetically or to challenge each other, trivia, to see where our football knowledge is off the top of our head. It is not scripted, and we really just like to see where our football knowledge is. So with that being said, Kris, this is my No Look Pass to you. How many times have the Kansas City Chiefs made the playoffs in the Super Bowl era?
Okay, give me a minute on that one.
Not a problem. Take your time. Take your time. And look, Kansas City, while he is taking his time figuring this out, this number is possibly higher than a lot of Chiefs fans would expect. Is that giving Kris a hint? Yes. I don't care. This dude has 50 years to figure this out. This is the 50th season of the Super Bowl era, so look, Kris has got a 1 in 50 shot of getting this right. Now, do I believe in him? Absolutely. 1 in 50 shot? Not really in his favor. So, Kris, what do you got here, Kris?
Well, I know it's not 50.
It is not 50. You're right about that.
And I know it's not 0 because we've been in there several times.
Absolutely.
I want to go with in the ballpark between 15 and 20.
Ooh. You know, Kris, I expected a little more out of you, my friend. I expected a little bit more out of you because you have undershot our Kansas City Chiefs by a lot.
Wow. Okay.
By a lot, yes. Okay, so in the Super Bowl era, the Kansas City Chiefs have made the playoffs 29 times.
Oh, okay.
Now look,
I'm off by 10.
Here's the bad thing about it. The years that we didn't make the playoffs, they were typically long stretches. So this is one of those things where I understand, you know, your thought process as to, you know, what is this number? But we've had a lot of playoff appearances. It's just the ones, you know, the length of time where we did not have playoff appearances were pretty lengthy.
Yeah, so it does kind of make the playoff runs seem much less. Yeah, okay.
Hey, but at the same time, let's be honest. 29 times is not too shabby. I'm kind of proud of that here in Chiefs Kingdom, especially with the speed bumps that we have gone through here in Chiefs Kingdom and yours and my lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, better than 50%, that's a winning record in my book.
Absolutely, especially how horrible the 80s were as well.
Oh, yeah.
We were a forgotten team there in the 80s. And so, okay, let's move on here. Let me hear your no look pass to me on this episode. I'm excited to hear this. Let's roll with it.
Okay, so I know that we're working towards eventually getting a chief on to our show to do an interview with.
Yes.
But let's say you had the chance to interview any former chief.
Woo.
Who would it be, and what would be 2 questions you would ask them?
Can I have a question here? I want to stipulate this.
Okay.
can it be a coach?
Yeah.
Okay. So, me personally, and I think I'm going to fire back at you with this question as well. I want to hear your answer on this as well. But I would love to sit down with Dick Vermeil and ask that man how he got where he was. Obviously, okay, so I don't want to say I want to ask him where he got where he is, because love and obviously intellect got him where he was. But I want to know what drives the man behind the man, because we're talking about a guy who brought NFL players into his home and cooked dinner for them. All of them. It didn't matter who you were. It didn't matter how you were. It didn't matter where you came from, what your upbringing was. Dick Vermeil loved everything about every single player and that organization. I want to know, this is a tough question, because if I could ask Dick Vermeil anything, I would ask him where he got his heart and his integrity, because I would model my entire life after a man like Dick Vermeil. And I know that goes outside the lines, and that goes outside football and outside of, this Chiefs season coming up. But I think it's no secret that Dick Vermeil was one of the best men to ever coach any football team in the NFL, college, high school, any level. And his heart and his dedication to his team was second to none. So me personally, I want to know where that man's head is, and I want to know where his heart is, because I want to follow that, and I want to build my life around someone like Dick Vermeil, because he is the epitome of everything that is a great man, a great husband, a great coach, a great employee in an organization, and a great humanitarian. And I think that somebody like that, you should absolutely build your life around. So that's my long, drawn-out answer to that, Kris.
I think you did a fantastic job in answering that one. I was not expecting for you to go that direction with that, but I think you did fantastic.
That's one of those things one thing that I've realized in life, whether it be following my father's footsteps, or, a commanding officer in the military, or, a football coach. Behind every great player, there's a great coach. Behind every great son, there's a great father, great mother. I don't want to take anything away from either roles. And I think that ultimately in life, when you build a craft, you have to form your craft around somebody who's been successful before you. And then you polish it and you make it your own. And Dick Vermeil, in my mind, was the best at that. And the way he handled his business and carried himself on the football field, as a coach, as a mentor, as a father figure, you could not ask for a more class act individual to be the head of your organization. And I feel like in my lifetime, I want to have the same impact as a man like Dick Vermeil. And that's ultimately where the bottom line is. And it just pays to be a great person and a class act, and he really is the epitome of that, Kris. He is. Dick Vermeil is the man. So,
I really hope you're not going to shoot that back to me, dude, because I can't follow up where you just went with that.
Hey, no problem, Kris. All right, and so look, with that being said, hey, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the gratitude of the deep thought behind Dick Vermeil. He deserves every bit of that gratitude, and I hope that I can be as good of a man as he has been throughout his lifetime. And with that being said, Kris, we're going to move on to our last segment here. Hey, it's been a great episode. We're moving into an hour here. We have 30 seconds left, and we're sitting at an hour. And Kris, we knew this was going to happen because this is a packed episode. But look, this touches a little bit deeper to home for you. We're going to move into the season preview, where we talk about a team each week that the Kansas City Chiefs face, and we're in week 16. This is a pivotal point in the NFL schedule, in the NFL season for any team, and especially teams like the Chiefs and the Bears. And look, we go to Chicago on Sunday night. This is primetime television on week 16, and we play the Bears. And we all know that Matt Nagy was the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs and now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. And they have a formidable depth chart. I mean, they are not lacking in very many spots. Now, do they stack up against the Chiefs? Yeah, possibly. Do we have a deeper depth chart? Of course. I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs have the deepest depth chart in the NFL. But I'm going to touch base on something real quick, Kris, and I'm not sure if you realize this, but the Bears lead the all-time series against the Kansas City Chiefs and a very low record here, 7-5. And 2011 was the last time the Chiefs actually beat the Bears. And I'm going to let you take off with the Bears here because this hits home for you, and I realize this, and I want to give a shout-out to your family members who are Bears fans, and we have talked about this, and this is kind of your time, Kris. I'm going to let you run away with this because I know how much this segment means to you and your family with a rivalry that you guys have at stake. So take off with the Bears, and you tell me how you feel about this matchup.
To start with, I think that this is going to be a Super Bowl preview. Could potentially be a Super Bowl preview.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Bears are one of two NFC teams that we might see in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
And before I get into the depth chart and the matchups and everything, I want to touch base real quick on their schedule. The Bears are going to be facing us, like you said, on Sunday night, after having faced the Cowboys and the Packers in the 2 prior weeks.
Ooh, great point.
And looking at their overall schedule, I expect for the Bears to be coming in fighting for, if not the division, fighting for potentially a number 1 seed in the NFC.
Oh, wow, yes, over New Orleans.
Yeah, and I think it's going to kind of depend on how their matchup October 20th plays out, because that's when they're going to be playing the Saints.
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
Okay, not that I couldn't ever be honest with you. Obviously, I can be honest with you, but what I want to say here is I feel like that New Orleans Saints, Chicago's Bear bout, the difference here is going to be Cordell Patterson. And here's the thing. He's such a versatile player, and they picked him up, from the Patriots? This guy can run the ball. He's a receiver. He's a tight end. He's a kick returner. When you pick up a player like Cordell Patterson, that opens up so many avenues for you, I feel like the Chicago Bears are a more formidable asset to make it to the Super Bowl than a lot of teams, players, and fans give them credit for in the NFL.
Yeah, and they're very quietly becoming a very, very good team in the NFC.
Yes.
Mitchell Trubisky, since he was drafted, has continually improved every single year.
Absolutely. And who is his 2 backups? His 2 backups are products of the Kansas City Chiefs, Chase Daniel and Tyler Bray.
Yeah. And the ties to the Chiefs, I mean, it's very, very clear.
Absolutely.
You've got a very deep running back depth chart with the Bears. They obviously have Tariq Cohen, who's extremely quick and shifty. And
Yes.
then they got him backed up by Mike Davis and
Yes.
then David Montgomery,
Yep.
who they just drafted in the 3rd round this year, who was the 4th overall rated running back in the draft.
Which is crazy that he fell to that round of the draft. But to be perfectly honest with you, the running back and cornerback market, was heavy in the beginning and fell off to sort of the later rounds. We look at Chicago as well as the Raiders. They're running back heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then the quarterback position also became heavy, which the Chiefs kind of fell off there. But we're not going to touch base on that. Let's talk about the Bears here, because not only do they have a great group of specialty players, they also, look, Kyle Long, obviously, anybody in the Long family on an offensive line, you have an anchor there. The Bears' offensive line is probably as good as it has been in 20 years, with a wide receiver in Allen Robinson. Backing up Robinson is Cordell Patterson, who can also return kicks and punts. With Taylor Gabriel, who's shown amazing things with the Bears here the last year or so. Mitchell Trubisky. I want to touch base on Trubisky. He was a quarterback that came in the draft with Patrick Mahomes, also with Deshaun Watson. He was the 3rd-rated quarterback. And I must say, that draft class has been pretty impressive. I can't overlook Trubisky. I mean, and look, Chase Daniel, to back him up, we all know about Chase Daniel. Not only is he being the backup of the Chiefs, he was Missouri Tigers starting quarterback, as well as the backup in Philadelphia. We followed Chase Daniel, and we know what he can do. So, with this Bears offense, this stacks up just as well as the Chargers, because you remove Melvin Gordon from the Chargers. We have a Chicago Bears offensive talent, 100. And would you put Chicago on the Chargers level as far as the offensive production if they lose Melvin Gordon?
To be honest, I've got to put the Bears above the Chargers.
Okay,
For the fact that I see the Bears being 5 deep at wide receiver.
Right. And
because
they are.
Like you mentioned, you've got Robinson, Gabriel, and Patterson. Anthony Miller, who came in last year as a slot receiver, and towards the end of the season was really putting up some good numbers there.
Where did Riley Ridley come from?
Spent a 3rd-round draft pick out of Georgia as well.
Was that right? Was Ridley?
Yeah. He's just like his brother, Calvin Ridley.
Yes. Okay.
And last year, he was actually working out with his brother, texting him and getting tips. He's got really good hands. He's not that good of a route runner, but he's very coachable, and he was learning the routes from his brother prior to the draft.
Okay.
And so he's been working on it.
Right.
I really expect him to come into his own by the end of his rookie year.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that the Bears' offense can stack up against the Chiefs' offense? Well, let me say this. I guess, let's be honest with you. I mean, there's more. This is a different Chiefs team. Last season, we would say, would the Bears' offense stack up against the Chiefs' offense? But now, let's be realistic, because we need to ask where the Bears' offense stack up against the Chiefs' defense, because there's actually a scheme that is going to back up Patrick Mahomes' production. Last year was all Patrick. This year we have defense. Do you think Chicago's as good on offense as we are on defense? Or is it, or let me ask you this. Do you think that, I personally feel that it's straight across the board. It could go either way. Let me know your thoughts.
If we were looking at the Bears versus a common opponent,
Mm-hmm.
I would say that they're on our level.
Fair enough.
They're probably going to have ballpark same offensive production as the Chiefs do.
Right.
If we're going head to head, then you got to look at the defenses and how well they match up.
Right. And that's where we're going to head into next. Go ahead and head into the defense. Let's talk about the defense, and let's break that down. Let's see where we stack up to the Chicago Bears, because obviously we have a defense that we have Khalil Mack, Clinton Dix, Akeem Hicks. I mean, there's some formidable players here on this Chicago Bears defense to kind of bring back that presence for Chicago as a defense-heavy squad, even though their offense is just as good as their defense.
Yeah, and I would not say that the Bears have as much depth, but their starting lineup is, I mean, you're going down this list, and it's name after name after name of guys who are consistently either in the Pro Bowl or being talked about being in the Pro Bowl.
Right.
You've got Kyle Fuller, who's Kendall Fuller's brother, and up until the Bears signed him long term, we were actually trying to get him in to come to and play alongside his brother.
Which would make perfect sense. Can't have them all, though, right? Can't have them all.
Yeah. I would have loved to have seen that.
That'd have been beautiful.
And then another guy that we used to see a lot when he was with the Raiders, Khalil Mack, who is, I mean, I would easily say top 3 player every single year in the NFL.
Yes.
I mean, the way that he started his career in Chicago last year was legendary.
It absolutely was. Let me ask you this. From what the Raiders got, we're just going to be honest, the Raiders got a running back for Khalil Mack. Who won, and this is a stupid question, but I got to ask you, who won more, the Raiders or the Bears?
It has to be the Bears easily.
Easily. By far.
The Raiders traded a top 3 rated, ranked NFL player for a rookie running back who is unproven at this point. And even if that running back comes out and throws out a 1,000-yard season this year, it's going to be nothing compared to what Mack did for this Bears team.
And you're right.
And the Khalil Mack trade is gonna had as much impact on the Bears defense as what I foresee the Frank Clark trade having on the KC defense this year.
Absolutely. And look, I would feel better if Khalil Mack would have been ranked above Patrick Mahomes on the top 100 list of the NFL this year. I would have felt better than Aaron Donald.
No, absolutely.
I feel like this man had a bigger, and I can't say bigger, but I look, Khalil Mack's a stud. And I'm not taking anything away from Aaron Donald, but holy cow, you go into your first game, 2 forced fumbles, a freaking touchdown. I mean, this dude absolutely destroyed, his first career start at Chicago, and then to carry that on throughout the season, and which will continue into this coming up season. And it's just, this man is on another level.
Yeah, and his play last year brought up the performance of everyone else on that defense.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Roquan Smith really came into his own last year in his rookie year. Didn't even look like a rookie half the time. Danny Trevathan, up until the point that he got suspended, was looking like an all-pro. Came back and same thing. Leonard Floyd was playing out of his mind.
Yes.
They brought over Clinton Dix in the offseason. He's going to be fantastic back there as a safety.
Kyle Fuller.
Yeah, Kyle Fuller, Amukamara over from the Giants. Akeem Hicks up in the front. I mean, these guys are very much in the Andy Reid Chiefs mindset of you play hard every single down, you give everything you've got.
And you're right. And I think that comes from, look, let's keep it real. I mean, Matt Nagy is a product of Big Red, and I feel like that's just kind of been passed down. And look, why would you fix what's not broken? If you take, a system coach from an Andy Reid, type of system, and you put him somewhere else, and look, Matt Nagy is absolutely succeeding, with this Andy Reid type of system, and I don't think nothing needs to change there in Chicago. The only thing that really needs to change is them getting over the hump in the playoffs, and I think this is the year to do it. And Chris, I'm going to move into our predictions here because, look, you and I have predicted, throughout the last 15 weeks that the Chiefs have had one loss against the San Diego Chargers. I personally am going to roll in the favor of the Bears this week as well. And I'm going to say that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to go down to the Chicago Bears in Soldier Field 35-31. Now, every single game that we have participated in, every single game that me and you have predicted, I feel like both of us have predicted over 30-point games here. So I want to know your prediction because right now I'm sitting at 13-2 with 1 week to go. This was a huge game for the Chiefs and the Bears. Where it stacks up for both of them in the division, we don't know. We don't know that. But let me ask you your prediction with the Chiefs going into Chicago on a primetime game with the Chiefs. Let's be honest, the Chiefs choked in primetime last season. What do you see here? Do you think the Chiefs can pull this victory off? Is this something that's going to be formidable to home field advantage here in the playoffs? Will we already have that locked in? Break this down because this is a deep, deep game for the Chicago Bears and the Kansas City Chiefs. So take off, Chris. Tell me what you think.
Okay, so when I make this prediction, I'm going off of everyone being healthy, not necessarily 100%, but everybody being healthy on both sides of the ball and for both teams.
Right. It's tough, isn't it?
I'm still flipping back and forth in my head on this. I see their defense and offense being right on par with the Chiefs. Where I see the difference is in special teams.
Oh, very valid point. Valid point.
And the Bears right now have 3 place kickers in training camp trying to find somebody who can kick it between the uprights.
Very true.
And
I'm listening.
Bears fans, if you're listening, give me a call. But I don't see anybody on this roster who is as consistent at putting it through the uprights as Butker.
Great point.
I'm going to go 31-28 KC.
Nice. Are we going to win it on a field goal last second? That's my question to you.
Yeah, I got to go there. I think it's going to come down to the last drive.
And look, Kansas City, and I really want to drive home this point. And Chiefs Kingdom, I understand that we are always biased. We want the Chiefs to win every single week. And look, Chris, I'm with you on this one. Do I think that the Chiefs can potentially be a one-loss team going to the playoffs? Yes. Do I think the Chiefs will come unprepared for one game? Yes. I think that we're going to get beat hands down one game, and we're going to come unprepared one game. And I feel like this Bears game is the one for the Chiefs. So the Chargers and the Bears for me, are the two losses this season. We will go 14-2. I'm going to go ahead and say it before next week. We're going to win this game next week and go into the playoffs, home field advantage. We'll have a better record than the Patriots, and this is going to be the year for the Kansas City Chiefs that we will go to the Super Bowl, win it, bring Lombardi Trophy home, and also bring the Lamar Hunt Trophy home as well. But my prediction is we're going to lose to the Chicago Bears 35-31 in a primetime bout in Chicago, because the last season, look, Kansas City, we didn't do very well in primetime scenarios. I'm looking at a Chiefs team who is almost perfect, but at some point I have to pull myself out of a scenario as a fan and put myself in reality and say, okay, the Kansas City Chiefs, will we win every game? Probably not. So let's look at the teams that we might possibly lose to. And I have the Bears and the Chargers. Not too bad of losses. I still have us beating the Patriots. I feel like we're going to go into the playoffs 14-2, which is first in the AFC. Home field advantage. That's all we need. We don't need this Bears win. Do we want it? Of course. We're 7-5 all time against the Bears. Will we get it? I don't know. Kris, I'd like to say that you are right. In my mind, I think we might lose this game. So realistically, Kris has the Chiefs moving into Week 17 with one loss. I have them moving into Week 17 with 2 losses. So, and we will wrap that up here before preseason starts. And I feel...
Richard, one more thing I want to touch on really quickly.
Please, yes, absolutely, Kris, go ahead.
For this game, we also have to take into consideration the time of year.
Absolutely.
December 22nd in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be cold.
Yes.
And it's going to be windy.
Yes.
And I think that the weather is going to have an effect on Mahomes as well. And like you mentioned, it's also going to be a primetime game. Although I'm going with the Chiefs on the win here, I can just as easily see us losing this game.
And that's the thing is, me as a biased fan of the Kansas City Chiefs, I want to say we'll win every game. Realistically, what you just said is probably the determining factor of whether the Chiefs beat the Bears or we fall to the Bears. Because I would, and this is going to sound really weird, Kansas City, and Alex Smith led Kansas City Chiefs with where the Bears organization was when Alex Smith was leading the team. I say we beat him hands down. You put Patrick Mahomes, a younger quarterback, with a younger team in the Kansas City Chiefs, and you take him to Chicago, the Windy City, where the elements are probably far more of a what's the right word I'm looking for? A hurdle for the Kansas City Chiefs than anything. I feel like this might be the second loss. This is the stage that Kansas City could potentially lose on compared to everything else that we're going to face this upcoming season. So with, like, Kris, you're right. I mean, when you really, weigh out the aspects of the Kansas City Chiefs in this game, I mean, this is a closer scenario than a lot of football games and the schedule for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, because I think with the cold, with and I'm presuming here because I can't predict the weather for 4 months from now, I'm going to assume snow. It's going to slow down our attack, and I think we're going to become a much more running attack offense. And if anything, pass-wise, we're going to be looking at like maybe 15 yards downfield. I'll be expecting Travis Kelce to be getting a lot of catches.
Right.
But, man, talking this over, I almost want to change my prediction now.
But hold on, before you change your prediction, remember this. Look at the last 5 seasons, and the Kansas City Chiefs' December record is through the roof. And that literally is because we know how to play in cold climates. So yes, the wind might be a factor, but just remember the Chiefs, we play in just as cold a climate throughout the winter as any team in the NFL. So don't count us out as far as the cold weather. The wind, maybe, but I think that also Patrick Mahomes, he might be able to climb through that void and be able to get a victory for the Chiefs. This is just so close for me that I'd rather put it as a loss for Kansas City than say, hey, Kansas City's going to go into the playoffs at 15-1, because that is darn near impossible.
Even after you said that, I think I have to go back and I have to change my prediction.
I'm great with that. Please do.
So, changing this into a much more of a running attack for Kansas City.
Yes.
And
a running attack against Khalil Mack?
I think we have to go that route. Throwing in the weather, we're going to have to try to go up against that other outside linebacker of Leonard Floyd, and we're going to have to really attack him.
Yes.
I think we can still get some touchdowns there. Maybe throw up some more field goals. I'm going to go 30-27 Bears.
So you're going to say the Bears are going to win this game.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my thing. Look, Kansas City, I've already came at Kris with a 35-31 loss. But I'm going to come back to him because he's in the same playground as I am. We have the same thoughts here. But I want to put this out there to Kris because you mentioned this before about our special teams. If there's any side of the ball that's going to elevate us over the Chicago Bears this week, it is going to be our special teams, whether it be Tyreek Hill, McCole Hartman, or Tremon Smith.
Yeah.
And one of those three, if we're going to beat the Chicago Bears, it is going to be out of one of those three players, because it's going to take the special teams to make that step to carry us, past that hurdle that I think the Chicago Bears are going to put in front of us. It's going to be a tough game, Kris. This is going to be a very, very tough game and a great way to lead us into the playoffs.
Yeah. To kind of put it on a level, I think it would be just as competitive as the Rams game last year.
Absolutely.
I just don't think it will be as high scoring.
No, because there's too many key players on defense. But, man, this is one of those things. I want to say 35-31, but I'm telling you, Kansas City, this could go either way. We are one Tyreek Hill punt away, from blowing the top off of this game. And it's so close of a matchup that I can't give us an undefeated record. I want to be biased, but at the same time, I want to be realistic. I'm not saying that we're going to lose to the Bears, but I am saying that a team at the caliber of the Chicago Bears could potentially beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Are we a better team? Absolutely. We're better than any team in the NFL, and I want Chiefs Kingdom to know that. I'm sure Kris feels the way I do, and we just need to see it for one season, but I feel like that we have the best team overall, offense, defense, and special teams, of any team in the NFL. How do you feel about that, Kris?
I gotta agree with you. I mean, we're definitely the better team. I just think that they get one over on us in this particular game.
And I'm with you on that one. And we're going to roll with that, Kansas City. That's going to bring Kris and I's overall record for the Kansas City Chiefs through Week 16. We have one more game, but that puts us both at 13-2. So we're sitting here at 13-2 between me and Kris with one more game. Me personally, I feel like we have the AFC West in lock. I feel like we have home field advantage in lock as well. So, with that being said, Kris, do you have anything else to add to our... Look, this has been an amazing broadcast tonight. We have touched base on so many different avenues, and I feel like we have kind of paved the way for what's ahead here in the preseason and to head into the regular season. But Kris, do you have anything else to add tonight?
Just one other thing that we didn't touch on. We were talking about the depth chart breakdown.
Yes.
One thing that really jumped out at me was Cam Irving, who has always been a guard for us, is listed as a tackle.
Oh.
Behind F. Fisher.
And so I feel like this is another creative Andy Reid thing where he's getting the best out of every player that he has and recognizing strengths and weaknesses. And it's no secret that Andy Reid will pull every single bit of talent out of each player that he has and will emphasize on, what's the right word I'm looking for? I guess the potential of each player. I'd like to hear more of what you have to say on that, but I don't second guess anything that Andy Reid or Brett Veach is doing in that front office, and you could be on to something here. So kind of elaborate a little bit on that. Let's go into depth.
Well, and we've kind of talked about this kind of all off season.
Yes.
Andy Reid, Brett Veach, they love versatile players.
Absolutely.
And moving Cam Irving outside to the tackle position is going to make him a versatile player.
Yes.
So that he's not just an interior lineman. He could potentially, in a pinch, step outside and play tackle.
But can he handle that role?
And that's going to be the big question that we have to look at.
Right.
I think that they're also looking at the offensive depth chart or interior depth chart, and a lot of the young guys that they drafted in the 7th round that they brought in as undrafted free agents in the past, these guys are starting to develop, and they're saying, okay, these guys are going to be outplaying you, and we want to give you the opportunity to still perform with us. We think you have a chance to be a better player as a backup role at tackle for us.
Right.
And it's great to see that he's presumably willing to make that change and that shift, because again, it's that team first mentality. And I think he also sees the value in being that versatile offensive lineman.
Yes, I feel like the team-first mentality has translated all the way across the board as far as our depth chart, and honestly as kind of a staple of that chart that me and you had touched, or you and I had touched base on in a prior episode, as far as what Brett Veach and Andy Reid are looking for.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to see how Cam Irving does outside of tackle in the preseason games. Hopefully he can stand his ground and play just as good, if not better, at tackle than he did at guard.
I think he's going to be okay. And, with what we have going on in the front office with Big Red, everybody that we have in this organization, the right moves are being made. I don't want to question anything that the Kansas City Chiefs are doing, because I have full faith in them. And that is the first time in my lifetime that I can legitimately say that, hey, the Kansas City Chiefs have honed in on their craft. They have polished it, and we are well on our way to a Super Bowl. And anything that front office wants to do, I'm in full support of, and I don't think anybody could argue with that.
I really don't think that they could.
Hey, and with that being said, hey, look, Chiefs Kingdom, we have a 94-minute broadcast here. We need to get off here. We've talked about a bunch of great scenarios for the Chiefs here in this broadcast, as well as players, schemes. We've broken down a lot. We've covered a lot of bases here. And Kris, I could not be more thankful for you, our senior NFL analyst. You always bring a lot to the table, and I thank you. You know, hands down, you're the best at what you do, and I couldn't be more pleased to have you on the show.
Thank you. That really means a lot, man.
Hey, look, and that is a lot of hard work and effort put in, you know, by Kris. And these are one of those things. I don't want these things to go overlooked. This man brings a lot to the table, and he makes the show here, you know, as well as I do. And Chiefs Kingdom, we appreciate you tuning in. We couldn't ask for a better audience. And look, we're here. Me personally, I'm up recording at 2 in the morning. I know Kris has got a little back time there. He's recording at 11 p.m. But look, we're out here grinding Kansas City, and we love y'all. We want y'all to have the latest news on the Kansas City Chiefs, and we all to be pumped for this upcoming season. We don't care what time it is. And that's not even a determining factor here. The determining factor is we got to let you go. You all have a long work week ahead of you. Now it is Tuesday, August 6th. It is 12:03 Kansas City time, and I'm just happy that everybody was here to listen to this broadcast. Like I said, Kris, we couldn't be more thankful for you coming on the show. And Kansas City, you have a wonderful night. We will speak with you soon.
From the Kansas City Sports Update Studios, welcome to Kingdom Radio, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs. Brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Join Kris and Richard on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, CastBox, and all third-party applications. Check us out on Facebook platforms such as Kansas City Sports Update and Arrowhead Update. And if you cannot find us there, Google or search Kingdom Radio and Kansas City Chiefs, and you will find us. Welcome to the Kingdom.